Hello, whisperers. Welcome to the channel. If you enjoy tonight's tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It helps more than you know. Now, dim the lights, and let's begin tonight's story. I used to think the end of the world would feel final, like the sky would split, fire would rain, and we'd all be swallowed up in one neat ending. But the truth is uglier. The world doesn't end. It just keeps rotting around you until you forget what it used to smell like. We call it the Great Zombie War now. But don't let the name fool you. It isn't some neat battle in the history books. It's every day. It's 25 years of clawing the earth back one street at a time, while the dead refuse to stay where we bury them. The great city is all we've got left that matters. It was once a cluster of safe zones, burned-out suburbs stitched together with fences, steel, and stubbornness. Over the years, it grew teeth, grew towers, grew walls so high the shadows inside look like mountains. People are born here now, who've never seen what a clear horizon looks like. Their sky is brick and barbed wire. But walls don't last. The black tides make sure of that. You've never seen fear until you've watched a horizon swell black with bodies, tens of thousands of them, all moving like a single blind storm. They don't come because they want to. They come because something in them still remembers how to follow the noise, the smoke, the heat of the living. Once a month, sometimes more, the tides shift. Whole districts fall. Sometimes we take them back. Sometimes we don't. That's the war. It isn't about winning. It's about reclaiming just enough so the city breathes another season. Every block we secure means children can play in daylight. Every block we lose means the next funeral pyre smokes higher. I've fought in 16 pushes beyond the wall. I've seen men get dragged under their own barricades. I've seen families locked out at dusk because one of them coughed at the gate. I've seen an entire platoon swallowed because someone forgot which alley was a dead end. So if you're listening to this, understand, the war doesn't care how brave you are. Bravery gets people killed. What keeps you alive are rules, not suggestions, rules. 10 of them. They were carved in blood, ash, and bone. Break them, and you won't just die. You'll take the rest of us with you. I'll tell you all 10 in order. You follow them. You might make it through a push. You forget them. The war will remind you what it costs. Now listen close. The first rule is the one we bury the fastest, and the one that saves us the most. Tip 1. Scout first. Map always. Rule 1. Simple. Move blind once, move dead twice. Before you plant a single fence post, before you roll a single sandbag, you scout. Always. The city outside our walls isn't just empty buildings and cracked asphalt. It's a living trap. Sound pools in strange places. Wind carries scent down broken alleys you'd swear were sealed. I've seen men step into the wrong street and vanish under teeth because no one walked it first. We map every push. Old school, paper, charcoal, grease pencil. Digital doesn't cut it out here. Batteries die, signals jam, and the dead don't care how expensive your equipment used to be. I still remember the first rooftop crawl I ever did. boots sliding on tar that felt like it might crumble through at any second. A buddy of mine, Rains, he almost went straight through a sun-rotted skylight. His weight hit it, glass spider-webbed under his chest, and for a second I thought I was watching him fall into the dark. Only thing that saved him was a rusted rebar frame that caught his pack strap. You don't forget a sound like that. His breath coming out in little panicked bursts, the dead shifting in the alley below, because even fear makes noise. Scouting isn't just about spotting where they are. It's about spotting where they'll gather when the noise starts. Courtyards act like amplifiers. Basements can turn into scent traps, the stink drawing them like flies. You mark those in red, always red. On my maps, red doesn't mean danger. It means death, if you forget. We learned to test the streets with crumb lures, little wind chimes strung with wire, or a clicker rigged to a crank. You leave one at a corner, wind blows it just enough, and you wait. If they're close, they'll stir. If they're silent, maybe you've bought yourself a safe lane for the day. Maybe. When the city pushes, the first teams aren't builders, aren't fighters. They're mappers. They move rooftops and alleys in pairs, sketching, cross-checking, whispering notes no one else will ever hear. By the time the wall crew arrives, the ground is already decided. Forget this rule, and you'll never even see what kills you. Follow it, and the map will carry you to the next sunrise. Tip 2 keeps you alive long enough to use that map. It's about silence and what happens when you forget how loud you really are. Tip 2. Plan the silence. Rule 2. If they hear you, they find you. If they see you, they keep you. Noise, light, scent, those three are the real enemies in the war. The dead don't track like hunters. They don't think, but their bodies remember. A crash of metal draws them like moths. A lantern flicker in a window holds them there, rocking back and forth until sunrise. The stink of sweat on a hot day can turn an empty street into a feeding ground. We don't stumble onto silence, we plan it. Every push begins with a sound map, where echoes travel, where wind tunnels form, where broken bottles have piled up in corners no one's cleared. You'd be surprised how far a single cough carries through a gutted skyscraper. I've watched one man's throat clear summon 40 corpses out of shadows like a magician's trick. That's why we build distractions. The city calls them siren drags. Picture a wagon on rusted wheels, loaded with scrap metal, meat rags, and a hand crank siren. You drag it 2 blocks off, wind it up, let it scream and stink while your crew works in blessed quiet. 12 minutes on, 18 off, never more. Run it longer, you don't get stragglers, you get herds. When I was green, I made the mistake of working without a drag. We were repairing a breach, hammering, shouting, too focused on the wall in front of us to think about the sound it was making. I looked up and saw them pouring down the street. Dozens, hundreds, not running, just moving, filling the space like water in a cracked bowl. We dropped our tools and bolted, left the wall half-built. By dusk it was gone, swallowed whole. That's when I learned. Silence is something you spend wisely, not something you beg for when it's already too late. So here's how you plan it. Blackout cloth over every lamp, angled down, never out. If you can see the stars can see you, and so can they. Descent with lie at gate mouths, scrub boots in bleach slurries, burn the rags after. Nothing clings longer than the smell of fear sweat mixed with rust. Use cover noise, a steady hiss of steam, the rumble of a pump. Constant sound lulls them, but a sudden crack, that wakes them. The dead don't reason, but they do remember long enough to linger. If you give them something to circle, they'll circle until your lungs give out. Tip 1 gives you the map, but it's useless if you don't guard your silence. And silence buys you the time to build, which brings us to tip 3. What everyone thinks will save them, but usually just gets them killed. Walls. Tip 3. Walls are systems, not lines. Rule 3. Ditch, wire, fence, lane, wall, roof, in that order. Everyone thinks the wall is what saves us. Stack bricks high enough, pour enough concrete, weld enough steel, and you'll be safe. But walls by themselves are nothing. I've seen zombies pile high enough to topple buses. I've seen concrete crack under their weight. A wall is just a tomb if you don't build the system around it. We learned this the hard way. The second push into the old market, we thought we had it figured out. 20 feet of poured concrete, reinforced with rebar thicker than my arm. Looked solid, felt solid. The dead hit it for 3 days straight. At first, it was just thuds in the dark, like fists on a door. Then came the grinding, bone on stone, teeth snapping through cracks. By the end of the week, the base gave out. The whole wall folded in on itself. We lost 40 people in one night. After that, we stopped thinking of walls as lines. We started thinking of them as layers, a system. You don't stop the dead. You slow them, break them, funnel them. By the time they reach your shooters, they're already half destroyed. Here's how it works. Ditch. First, cut a V-trench outside the perimeter. Even shallow, it breaks their legs and slows the herd. The first fallers trip the rest. Wire. Next comes tanglefoot. Razor if you have it. Scrap and cable if you don't. Zombies stumble in, twist, snarl themselves together like fish in a net. Fence. Chain link. Barbed. Whatever bends but doesn't break. You want them to press and press until their own weight makes them collapse in heaps. Lane. Then a kill lane. Long, straight, stripped of cover. A shooting gallery where your people can mow down the stragglers. Wall. The real wall sits behind that. Not the first thing they touch, the last. It should be shorter than they expect, angled to make climbing hard, with firing slits cut low and wide. Roof, finally, the high ground. Catwalks and platforms overlooking everything. Because if you can't shoot down, you're blind. Think of it like a grinder. The ditch breaks them, the wire holds them, the fence funnels them, the lane bleeds them, and only then do they meet the wall. By the time they reach your shooters, they're already staggering meat. And if you skip one, if you think you can save time, you'll learn the same way we did, by watching the line collapse, hearing the screams echo across stone, and knowing it was your shortcut that wrote the obituary. Every block we've reclaimed in the great city stands because of this system. Every block we lost fell because someone thought a wall alone was enough. Tip 4 will teach you the truth most people don't want to face. Walls might keep the dead out, but doors are what let them in. Tip 4. Control the doors. Rule 4. Every door is a promise you'll keep or regret. Walls don't fail half as often as doors do. Think about it. Walls are dumb stone and steel. They don't care if you're tired or scared. Doors need people. Someone has to open them. Someone has to close them. Someone has to decide who gets in. And people break easier than concrete. That's why every gate, every hatch, every sally port gets treated like a loaded weapon. One wrong move, 1 second of pity, and you've handed the war another street. We build our gates in stages, 2 chambers minimum. You enter, the first gate locks behind you, then decon starts. That's bleach spray, scrape downs, bite checks under bright flood lamps. No excuses, no skipping. Only once you're cleared do you enter the second chamber, and only then do we open into the city. I've watched men beg at those doors, farmers, traders, even soldiers who made it back bleeding. They bang, they scream, they swear they're clean. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they're hiding the cough, or a sleeve covering the bite, or just plain lying because they don't want to die outside. I've stood in the guard room and counted to 10 while someone wailed on the steel. When the wailing stopped, I knew we made the right call. It doesn't make it easier to sleep, but it keeps everyone else alive. Here's what you need for a door to hold. Gate team of 3, 1 with eyes, 1 with hands, 1 with a rifle, 2 bite checks, once in shadow, once in light, because liars hate the lamp. 24-hour quarantine, even if they're family, especially if they're family. Locks that scream when they're tampered with. If you can't hear the alarm, you won't hear the dead piling in either. And above all, you need discipline. Because here's the truth. The enemy doesn't always come snarling from the dark. Sometimes it knocks politely and sounds like someone you love. The war has a cruel way of testing what kind of person you are at the doors. But remember this, your kindness can cost 100 lives. So don't open for mercy. Don't open for fear. Don't open for hope. Open for protocol. Only protocol. Tip 5 will show you the only place safer than a wall or a door. The high ground above it all. But safety up there has its own price. Tip 5. Own the high ground. Rule 5. If you can't see it, it's already behind you. The safest place in the great zombie war isn't behind a wall or inside a gate. It's above it. The high ground is the difference between living and guessing. Rooftops give you sight lines, clean firing arcs, and the first warning when a tide shifts. From up there, the war looks different. Streets aren't roads, they're rivers, waiting to flood. You can read the way a herd swells, long before the ground teams hear it. And when you're building new lines, those catwalks and watch points are what keep your people from walking blind into their own graves. But the high ground isn't free. It's one of the first places we learned the dead could surprise us. Early in the pushes, we thought rooftops were untouchable. Then one day a crawler climbed 3 stories of rusted scaffolding just by clawing and gnashing, scraping the skin off its hands until bone showed. By the time we saw it, it was already on the roof, tangled in one of our spotters. That lesson never left me. Here's what you need if you want the high ground to save you instead of kill you. Stair discipline. Weld off lower stairwells, leave ladders that pull up quick. If you can climb it fast, you can cut it faster. Catwalk loops. Every rooftop in the perimeter should connect. No dead ends, no blind corners. If someone screams on the east wall, you'd better be able to sprint across the roofs to reach them. Mirrors on poles. Sounds stupid, but angled glass or steel lets you peek blind alleys without leaning out like bait. Noise control. Nothing gives you away faster than loose gravel skittering under boots. Sweep it, chalk it, keep it quiet. I remember a push near the rail yard. I was on a catwalk when the street below went from empty to alive in seconds. 100 dead, maybe more, spilling out of side doors like they've been waiting for us. The only reason I'm still breathing is because I had the roof under me and sight lines wide enough to call the retreat. If I'd been on the ground, I'd have been part of the pavement by nightfall. The high ground doesn't just save your life. It saves the wall itself, because you can't hold what you can't see. Tip 6 will show you the other thing we thought would save us, but learn to fear just as much. Fire. Use it wrong, and you'll burn yourself in before the dead even reach you. Tip 6. Fire is a tool, not a plan. Rule 6. Burn smart, or you burn yourself in. Fire tempts every new recruit. It feels clean, final. You look at a street packed with the dead and think, one good blaze, and they're ash. But fire doesn't care what side you're on. It takes the dead, the living, the walls, the food. It takes everything. The first time I saw a push burn itself out, it wasn't even the zombies that killed them. It was the smoke. They lit a warehouse thinking the flames would clear the block. The blaze took the building. The wind carried the smoke, and in minutes the whole street was choking. Fighters staggered, coughing, blind, weapons slipping from their hands. And the noise, that crackling roar, pulled every corpse within half a mile. They weren't just fighting the fire. They were fighting in it. No one came back. So we learned to use fire the way we use knives. Carefully, with purpose, never as a plan, only as a tool. Here's how you do it. Controlled burns. You scrape lines down to dirt or concrete before you light a match. Fire breaks, always. If there's nothing to eat, the blaze stays where you want it. Small and slow. Pallets, rags, drip fuel. You feed it like a campfire, not a pyre. Big fires call herds you can't kill. Eyes on the wind. If smoke blows back toward the city, you're done. Always burn crosswind, never with it, never against it. Extinguishers ready. Buckets of sand, foam, even dirt. Fire doesn't listen, so you better be ready when it stops obeying. And one more thing, never light a fire at night. Flames against the dark can be seen for miles, and the dead don't need much of a reason to start walking. Once they've seen it, they don't forget. I keep a scar on my left arm from a burn line that went wrong. Heat rolled back, caught the sleeve of my jacket, and I had to roll through glass and gravel to put it out. I still smell it sometimes, burnt flesh and ash. The men with me that night didn't make it, not because the dead found us first, because the fire did. So yeah, use fire. Burn nests, torch plague pits, cook your food if you have to, but never ever trust it to hold a line for you. Fire doesn't hold. Fire takes. Tip 7 will show you what really does hold a line. The quiet machines that keep the war moving. And when those fail, everything else falls with them. Tip 7. Logistics win the war. Rule 7. If a truck stops, a wall dies. We talk about walls, weapons, fire, and maps like they're what hold the line. They don't. Logistics does. Without water, your people collapse. Without ammo, the walls turn silent. Without power, your gates won't close, and silence won't last. Every victory we've had in this war was decided long before the first shot by whether our supply lines held. I was part of Push 44, back when we tried to reclaim the southern yards. The wall was perfect. Ditches, fences, kill lanes, everything by the book. But one supply truck never came back. Tires shredded 2 blocks out. No replacement. That single truck carried the spare belts for the heavy guns. By nightfall, the barrels overheated, jammed, and fell silent. The dead didn't breach the wall. They climbed the corpses stacked against it until they poured over like water. We retreated, dragging bodies behind us, all because one truck didn't make it. Logistics isn't glamorous, but it's what keeps the war alive. Here's what we learned to do. Redundancy. 2 of everything. Pumps, hoses, belts, fuses. If it matters, you need a backup. If it doesn't, you don't need it. Ammo craft. Every block has a press bench. Every squad rotates into loading duty. A day without ammo is a day the wall doesn't speak. Power discipline. We use bike cranks, flywheels, anything quiet. Loud generators after dusk? You might as well ring dinner bells. Repair walks. Every sunrise, crews walk the perimeter with chalk and grease. If something squeaks, leaks, or hums wrong, it gets fixed before nightfall. Logistics is quiet work. It doesn't get you songs or medals, but it's the difference between a wall that stands and a graveyard with better lighting. I keep thinking about the sound that night at the southern yards, the clack of empty bolts when the gunners realized the belts were gone. It was louder than the moaning, louder than the gunfire, louder than anything. That sound still wakes me sometimes. So, don't ever forget this rule. You can lose a scout, you can lose a wall section, you can even lose a gate. But lose your supply lines, you lose the war. Tip 8 will show you how we take the fight to them, because waiting behind walls only makes the herds grow. Sometimes survival means leaving the safety of the city and striking first. Tip 8. Strike first, strike clean. Rule 8. Kill small today or kill big tomorrow. The dead don't farm, don't sleep, don't breed. They just accumulate. Leave a handful wandering outside your wall today, and tomorrow there'll be a crowd. Leave the crowd, and by next week, you're staring at a herd that'll test your whole perimeter. The only way to stop that is to bleed the numbers before they swell. That's why we run sorties, strike teams that step outside the gates at dawn and sweep the nearby streets. It's not glory work. It's not even fair work. You're outnumbered before you leave the city and you know it. But without sorties, the war isn't a war. It's a slow drowning. I remember my first sortie like it was yesterday. 4 of us moved through the ash-gray quiet of a burned-out district, the light just thin enough to make every shadow feel alive. We had pikes, hammers, 1 suppressed carbine. The plan was simple. Sweep a 2-block radius, cull the stragglers, and fall back. No chasing, no heroics, just clean, surgical work. Half an hour in, I saw a door open that hadn't been open the day before. A soft creak, nothing more. But that's how they trick you. Not on purpose, just the chaos of their presence. Curiosity kills more rookies than bites. You see an open door, you want to check it. But sortie teams live by 3 words. Never chase shadows. If it's out of sight, it's bait. We marked it, moved on. 2 blocks later, a dozen corpses spilled out of the same building, howling at the faintest noise. If we'd gone in, that alley would have been our grave. Here's how sorties work when they work. 2 in, 2 on overwatch. Always a pair watching the pair moving. Rotate every 10 minutes. Clear to a mark. A wall, a tower, some sight line the wall team can see. Never further. If the city can't see you, you're already dead. Count bodies by boots, never by heads, never by arms. Too easy to double count parts. Count boots, and you know how many won't rise again. Fall back before noise builds. The longer you linger, the louder you get, and the louder you get, the more they gather. Sorties don't win the war. They just make it survivable. They're the reason we can expand a block instead of just holding one. They buy us breathing room, 1 corpse at a time. But sorties don't mean much if you forget what comes next. Because no matter how many you kill, the tides always rise. And when they rise, walls fall, gates buckle, and silence breaks. Tip 9 will teach you how to survive the worst of it. The black tides. When the dead come not in dozens or hundreds, but in thousands. Tip 9. Expect the tides. Rule 9. Nothing you build is permanent. Plan to leave it. The black tides are why we call this a war instead of a cleanup. 1 minute the streets are empty, the next, the horizon itself starts moving. It looks like heat, shimmer at first, a kind of ripple on the edge of vision. Then it swells, and you realize the ripple isn't the air, it's bodies, thousands of them, all shifting in the same direction, like they've been called. I don't care how strong your walls are, how disciplined your crews are, or how many guns you've stockpiled. The tides don't break. They overwhelm. They press until steel bows. They climb until corpses make a ramp. They roar until silence feels like a dream you once had. You don't beat a tide. You outlast it. The first time I lived through one, it came early. We thought we had another day. Wind charts said the herds would shift east. Instead, the air changed at noon. I felt it before I heard it. Cold wind on the back of my neck, the kind that makes your gut tighten before your brain catches up. Then the sound came, low, steady, like 1,000 throats humming. By dusk, the grinder was full, the wire sang, and the fence bowed like a ship hull in a storm. We didn't win that fight. We survived it. Barely. Here's how you prepare when the tide comes. Alarm codes. Keep them simple. One short. Ready. One long. Hold fire. Two long. Fall back. Three short. Breach. When panic hits, no one remembers fancy signals. Peel plan. Decide now who covers, who moves, and where your fallback cache is. Water, ammo, masks. If you don't plan the retreat, you'll die in it. Sacrifice line. Every push needs one block you're willing to lose. Burn it, collapse it, choke it with fire if you must. You can rebuild a block. You can't rebuild your people. Silent caches, never keep everything at the front. Store supplies 2 blocks back, where the tide won't roll over them when your line breaks. And it will break. That's the truth no one likes to hear. The tide doesn't stop because you've had enough. It stops when something louder, hotter, or more alive draws it away. When it passes, you pick up the pieces, rebuild, start again. That's the rhythm of the war. Gain ground, lose ground, gain it back. If you remember only one thing about the tides, remember this. Walls are temporary, but survival is permanent. You can't save every brick, but you can save your people. And in this war, that's the only victory that matters. Tip 10 is about the hardest part, the part no one wants to admit. The walls don't fail first. The doors don't fail first. The people do. And when that happens, you need to know how to hold each other together. Tip 10, people break before walls do. Rule 10, 2 is 1. 1 is a ghost. Every wall I've seen collapse, every gate I've seen overrun, it wasn't stone or steel that gave way first. It was people. Fear, exhaustion, grief. Those are what kill faster than any bite. I once watched a boy no older than 20 crack at the sound of a woman crying outside the gate. She begged, sobbing, calling a name that might have been his sister's. He started fumbling the locks before anyone could stop him. We dragged him back, kicking and screaming, but the damage was done. The noise carried. By dawn, that whole sector was a charnel pit. The boy never spoke again, just stared at the doors like they were going to swallow him. That's why morale is treated like ammo in the war. You guard it, ration it, check it hourly. Because when people break, the war doesn't just take one. It takes everyone standing next to them. Here's how we keep each other alive. Buddy checks every hour. Water, wounds, words. You check your partner, they check you. Alone is dead. Passwords. Simple, stupid, easy to shout under stress. If someone can't say it, you shoot first and mourn later. Grief protocol. A name on the wall. 5 minutes of silence. Then back to work. Not because we don't care, because caring too long gets the next person killed. Radio cadence. Every 15 minutes, 3 words. Alive. At post. It doesn't matter if your throat is dry or your hands are shaking. You say it because someone's waiting to hear it. The war doesn't care how high our walls are or how clever our traps are. It cares if we turn on each other. It waits for the moment someone panics, someone despairs, someone breaks. That's the true enemy. Remember this, the Great Zombie War isn't won by steel or fire. It's won by people holding each other together, hour after hour, night after night. Two is one. One is a ghost. The great zombie war isn't about glory. It isn't about victory. It's about stubborn survival, brick by brick, block by block. Every push we make beyond the wall buys children one more day of open air. Every block we reclaim means bread that doesn't taste like smoke, water that doesn't stink of rust. We measure progress in streets, not in miles, in names carved into walls, not in parades. I've stood on rooftops and heard the sound of 1,000 throats humming as the tide rolled in. I've felt the walls tremble under my boots. I've watched the sky turn black with ash and thought, this is it. This is the end. But it never is. Because we keep building. We keep fighting. We keep remembering the rules carved in blood and ash. You're part of it now. If you've listened this far, these rules are yours. Scout first. Plan the silence. Build systems, not lines. Guard the doors. Own the high ground. Burn smart. Protect the machines. Strike first. Expect the tides. Hold each other. The city isn't great because of its walls. It's great because of the people too stubborn to die inside them. So don't be brave. Be boring. Boring lives. And when the next push begins, remember, the war doesn't end. It just waits. And the only reason we're still here is because some of us remembered the rules.